Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to UFC 187 review. I am just going to be going over today just the co-main event and the main event. I was able to see highlights from both fights. Looked very good action that occurred in both of these fights. Saw these highlights on SportsCenter this morning before I went to work. So, I didn't want to stall off on this review any longer for you guys, so I wanted to get it done and get it out of the way for you guys so that you guys have that information from me and my thoughts about it. So, basically what happened in the co-main event for the middleweight championship of the world in UFC is Chris Weidman defeated Vitor Belfort by TKO from punches. Now, as I mentioned before, I was more towards Chris Weidman winning this fight. I would have been very happy to see Vitor Belfort win it, but because of the youth and everything else, I truly believe that Chris Weidman was going to be walking away with this title. Very good fight though. Vitor Belfort had an opportunity to close out the fight. Weidman made it through the fury of punches that Vitor Belfort was throwing at him. So, I mean, all props to Chris Weidman in this fight. He really busted his ass, turned things around in the first round, and got a TKO victory over Vitor Belfort. So, at this point in time, my opinion of Chris Weidman is very high. He's got great ability. The guy is going to probably be the UFC middleweight champion for quite some while. I don't think there's going to be too many people even coming close to beating this guy. And even if they do, this guy can turn things around in a heartbeat. He's done it quite a few times. Against Anderson Silva, he went ahead, was losing in the first fight, and then knocked him out and beat him and defeated him. Second fight, he kind of pretty much dominated. Him and Lyoto Machida in UFC 175, I'd never seen that fight or what happened or occurred. I just know he won. So, I don't know how that fight occurred. But this fight between him and Vitor Belfort, for him to turn this around on Vitor Belfort was very impressive. For him to do that in just the very first round alone, on top of that, is very impressive as well. So, all props to Chris Weidman. I wish him good luck in his future title defenses, and I think he's going to make a good champion in the next couple of years as well. And he might be, I'm not going to say he's Floyd Mayweather of UFC, but he might stay undefeated for quite some while. I don't know if anyone's ever going to defeat this guy, unless Anderson Silva gets a hold of him at some point down the road. But the way things are going for him, he's got a steroid test that didn't turn out, so he got a steroid test that came up, and that might push him back from getting title fights for a while until he can prove himself again. But overall, Chris Weidman, he's the top of his class in the middleweight division. I see that this guy is going to be champion for quite some while. But anyway, not repeating myself here about Chris Weidman. Vitor Belfort, as old as he is, he's a great fighter, but I don't ever see this guy winning a title. He's had countless times going after the UFC belt in other weight classes, and he's just not been able to reach the brass ring, so to speak. So, in all sense, Vitor Belfort, yeah, he can win in the, regular fights, but when it comes to the title fights, he just doesn't seem to rise above and be what he needs to be to become a UFC world champion. But he's still fun to watch, but I don't expect Vitor Belfort to ever win a championship anytime soon, or even before he retires. So overall, Vitor Belfort, nice try, but no cigar, man. That's all I got to say on that one. But moving on to the main event for the light heavyweight championship to crown a new champion in that weight class, since Jon Jones is a bona fide dumbass and can't keep his life straight. We went ahead and ended the fight with Daniel Cormier defeating Anthony Johnson in a submission hold by a rear naked choke in the third round. Very impressive. Very shocked this actually ended with a submission. I was very shocked by that. I didn't expect that one coming. I was kind of figuring one of the two were going to knock the other out. But I was right on my prediction that the fight for Daniel Cormier for him to win would either be the first 3 rounds or he'd just lose after that. Anthony Johnson, on the other hand, I mean, he did do some impressive things, and based off of the highlights I saw on SportsCenter, he was pretty good. But unfortunately, he got pinned down, made the wrong move, and got the rear naked choke and tapped out. That's all there is to say. Now, getting into Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier is a champion now. He isn't, to me, legitimately the champion. He really isn't. Because he had his opportunity against Jon Jones in 182, and he couldn't pull it off. He was getting his ass kicked. So in all retrospect, in my mind, the way I think about this is like he's carrying around the interim championship, only legitimately he is the current UFC light heavyweight champion. But it's very, it's not something I look at it with him winning this fight as him being the man. The only way I could look at him being the man is if he fights Jon Jones whenever the hell Jon Jones can get back into the UFC, which from what I've read on news about it, he might never come back to UFC based off of what happened, in his personal life with that hit and run incident with that pregnant lady. So UFC light heavyweight division, it still to me is wide open for anyone to win. Anthony Johnson didn't look like he was just some powder puff getting his ass kicked by Daniel Cormier. This fight was pretty darn close. He just happened to catch him in a good spot, got him in the rear naked choke, and won the fight altogether. So, I mean, overall, both of them were pretty evenly matched. Just Daniel Cormier was the better man that night. So, overall, I still see that these two guys could have a rematch with each other for a number 2 fight and compete for that UFC light heavyweight title. Do I think Daniel Cormier, though, will make a good UFC light heavyweight champion? Of course he will. He's a good fighter. He didn't fight bad against Jon Jones. He just couldn't pull off the victory against him. Not by judges or even trying to knock him out. He didn't even come close to knocking out Jon Jones. So, but do I take away him being champion? Hell no. He's still a good fighter. He's looks average Joe looking, but he's as strong as an ox mofo that you could think of. I mean, you look at him, he don't look tough. He don't look, big and buff, but when he gets in that octagon, he really kicks ass. So bottom line, I think the guy's got some great skills. I think he's going to be a champion for a while. He might have a couple of good title defenses and then eventually lose the title. I see that probably is what's going to happen. Do I see Anthony Johnson at all going ahead and getting to a point where he'll be back in the UFC light heavyweight championship title fight? I definitely do. I think there's a possibility he might win that title back from Daniel Cormier. Well, not back, but he'll win the championship from Daniel Cormier down the line. Maybe after a couple of title defenses that Daniel Cormier has. Or he might win it right back after. They'll give him a rematch immediately afterwards. So, in all, retrospect of all this stuff that's went on and occurred at this event, great fights. Both of them were very good. The other fights I did not get to see the highlights of, unfortunately. I will definitely, for the next UFC event, if it's a really good one, I'm definitely going to go ahead and give you the full rundown of the main card, give you information that occurred in the fight, whether you've seen it or you did or you didn't. That's what I'm going to do. So, at this time, you know what to do. Leave your comments, opinions, or anything that based off of what you saw from the fight, let me know what you thought of it. I'd like to hear from you. I'll definitely respond back to you guys and everything else. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I hope you enjoyed this video. You guys have a great night, and thank you again for watching. Bye.